is Ed Petke with the Americans in Wartime Experience. Today's date is June 4th, 2022, and I have the pleasure of sitting down with Mr. Jack O'Connell in Reading, Pennsylvania. Sir, would you please give us your full name and where you were born?
My name is Jack O'Connell. My right name is John. Jack's a nickname for it. And I was born in Easton, Pennsylvania in 1950.
And what time period were you in the service?
I was in from October of 1970 till October of 1974.
Do you have any other military veterans in your family?
Yes, my father was in World War II, and he was over in North Africa, and he was the ground crew for the B-17s, and my brother was in the National Guards during Vietnam.
How did you enter into military service?
Well, I was kind of waiting around for my brother's wedding, and so I waited a couple years after my graduation, and then what happened was I got drafted, and I was thinking about joining the Navy. So I went down to the Navy recruiter, and I said, "Hey, what can I do here?" But my brother's getting married in August, and they said, "Go take your physical for the Army, and then come to us, and we'll switch it over and put you on a delay program so I can hang around for my brother's wedding."
Okay, so you got to go.
Yeah, so then I got to go. So got out the wedding, and then I left a couple of months later in October for the Navy boot camp.
And did you go to Great Lakes?
Yes, I did.
Okay. What'd you think of Illinois?
Cold, because we were up there in the wintertime. And actually we had a guy in our company that was from Hawaii, and he wanted to go there so we can see snow. They put him on a snow removal detail. 2 o'clock in the morning, I got him up and said, "This is a snow shovel, this is snow. This is what you do." Well, he didn't want to see another flake then for the rest of his life. It was cold up there when I was there.
Oh, absolutely.
But it was good. It was good.
And what was your occupation? What was your specialty?
I was a radio man. I went from Great Lakes to Bainbridge, Maryland, which isn't there. It's right outside of Port Deposit, Maryland. Base is no longer there anymore, but we had several schools, and I went to radio man school there for several weeks. And then from there, I got my orders to Asmara, Ethiopia, for a year and a half.
Okay.
So I went over there as a radio man.
Okay. So, being in the Navy, were you assigned to a ship at this time?
No. They kept me on a mile-high mountain in Ethiopia.
Okay.
I think someone told the Navy I couldn't swim, so it kept me away from water. But that's several of us from my class went there. We met about 5 guys, or I'm sorry, 3 guys that went over there, and so I was radio men. And I got put into a division called Control. And
what does Control do?
We worked with crypto gear and a high frequency voice around the world, and we controlled all the frequencies that the ships would come in. There were certain frequencies they're allowed to be on, and we had to give them permission. And we had 3 people in control. We had a first class that was the supervisor, then 2 people under him that helped run control. And we had what they call auto wires, typing on teletype machines to places around the world. You know, like we had road to Spain and up in Germany and other places. And so that's what we did. So I worked with crypto gears. I had to have a top secret clearance with the government to do that, and that was my job.
So was that basically running a go-between? Was that ship to ship, ship to shore, or was that a relay to go along the line?
Well, what we did was we communicated with the ship to the Mediterranean, Red Sea, and the Indian Ocean, and because it was all at high frequency back then, they would give us their messages, and then we would route them where they had to go, because we were in a good position.
Gotcha.
Year and a half after I left, though, the base had to close because the communists took over Ethiopia. And we had to shut down the base, and they left.
Okay, so, and that was after you had left?
Yeah, that was about a year and a half.
Okay.
They wanted me to stay to help shut it down, but my orders were to go to teletype repair school.
Okay.
And I didn't want to turn down the school. So
Okay.
I left there and I went to teletype repair school then after that.
And where was that school at?
Norfolk, Virginia.
Norfolk, okay.
Yeah, 9 weeks there. Yeah, we
So-
had. I'm sorry.
Oh no, good.
I said we had it very good over there because in Ethiopia, for so many Americans that were there, they had to hire Ethiopians. So we had Ethiopians doing all kinds of stuff around the base, including being houseboys. So they shined our shoes, made our beds. When it came time for inspection, we gave them our tropical whites, and they took it downtown, got them cleaned and pressed. So we had it pretty good.
So you were essentially employing a workforce over there,
Yeah. Oh yes. Yes. Very
and
much so.
basically thriving their infrastructure,
Yes.
their economy.
Oh yeah. I read an article in National Geographic after I was out of the Navy about the Americans being there, and the Ethiopians were very depressed after we left because they said when Americans were here, they employed our people. They came downtown and they shopped our shops and bought our goods, and even some of them married their women that took care of them. Once we left and the communists took over, none of that happened, and
Sure.
the economy went down.
So who would have known? They liked you better than communism.
Oh yeah.
So what was your rank at the time?
Over there, I was just a seaman. Okay,
okay.
E3.
Yeah, E3.
Yeah, and then as I was leaving, I made E4, third class.
So your duties day to day, what's a work schedule like, as far as a rotation for doing your job over there?
Oh, we had a 5-section duty and control, where we worked 2 eve watches and 2 mid watches and 2 day watches. Then we had 3 days off,
Okay.
and that's the way our schedule was. So we work at nighttime, whatever. Christmas Eve when I was over there, I worked Christmas Eve mid watch. So going into Christmas, we had Saturday. Not much is going on,
Sure.
but communications 24/7,
Sure.
and we had to keep it going.
Right. So is it a self-contained unit up there? So basically, when you're off duty, do you have a building up there? You have a shack, a hut?
Yeah, we have barracks.
Okay.
Yeah, nice barracks. The showers are down the hall.
Okay.
We had a bowling alley there. We had clubs we can go to, chow
Okay.
hall.
So it was a full base.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So when
Yeah.
you're off duty, I mean, you have things to do. You
Oh,
have
yeah.
places to go, and
Mhm.
you're not just sitting there looking out at
Exactly.
at the desert. Okay.
And we can go downtown,
Okay.
and do the shopping and stuff. And I got a lot of wonderful handcraft stuff down there. I got maritime pipes and stuff that they sold down there downtown. And
So the downtown area, I mean, it's someplace you wouldn't mind going down and visiting. It was
yeah,
a nice
yeah,
place
we
to go.
went down quite often. They had some. The Italians moved in during World War II, and there was a couple of them stayed there. There were some wonderful Italian restaurants and eateries and bakeries and stuff. And yeah, we used to go on downtown, and that helped thrive their economy over there.
Sure.
So
when you first went over, Vietnam War is still going on?
yes,
Okay.
it's still going on.
So are you deciphering and passing along messages related to the conflict and the action that's going on over there?
Not too much because it was a little bit too far away for us.
Okay.
We basically were taking care of the ships in, I guess, the Mediterranean and Indian Ocean, Red Sea.
You didn't make it over to Vietnam at all?
No.
In country at all? Okay. When you're over there, obviously, when you talk to the guys in the World War II and stuff, it's all driven by letters, and it's a month here, a month, to get a letter and
Right.
say. Obviously, in the 70s, you could pick up the phone. Was it easy to keep in touch with home?
Well, we were still writing letters,
Okay.
back and forth. And but one of my jobs in control was I was what they call an Audubon operator, and that's just like the old-fashioned telephone operator.
Oh, like the switchboard?
Yeah, switchboard thing, but it was done by satellite.
Oh.
And we didn't have stateside access, but I had to go from there to Europe, and then they would patch me somewhere in the United States, and we would get calls home. It's illegal to do.
You won't tell anyone.
But nobody's going to say anything.
Right.
But we did it in the middle of the night.
Okay.
And once in a great while, I call my parents,
Okay.
and talk to them. And
So like making a regular phone call, essentially.
yeah.
Okay.
And then they had to pay long distance from wherever it came in, so I would get something local, a base local, maybe
okay.
McGuire Air Force Base or something.
Okay.
And but then we had a lot of guys there with their wives, and the wives would get homesick, and so I'd get a call home for them to talk a little bit, ease their homesickness, talk to their parents for about 10 minutes.
Right.
And the good part was the husband would call me up and say, "Wife wants to know what night you're off," and I tell them, and they always invited me over for dinner. That's how I got my home cooked meals.
There you go.
So the wives would make the meals, and they said, "Well, what does he like?" And I would say, that's the husband. I said, "Well, what does she do good?" He said, "Well, she does this." I said, "That's good." So.
And just getting that home cooked and that
Yeah.
sense of home,
Yeah.
it's a morale booster.
Oh, it was, yeah,
Right.
for me and them, yeah.
Sure.
Because, like I said, the wives got a chance to talk to their parents a little bit,
Very nice.
So yeah, we worked together. Right? It was a great time. The people I was over there with, we became very close, and I lost contact with everybody for about 30 years, and then I found a website, and I started getting in contact with people, and so I've been communicating with people, seeing some of the people, and 3 years ago, my wife and I went down to Nashville, North Carolina. They had a Navy reunion from everybody, and saw people I haven't seen since 1972.
Wow.
And we all remembered each other.
Probably all picked up like it was yesterday.
Yeah, we did.
It's that bond and that brotherhood
Yeah.
that it's the camaraderie. You've gone through everything, the same stuff. You can relate, and
Exactly.
again, you can not see someone for 20 years and it's like you spoke yesterday.
Yeah, exactly.
It's wonderful. It really is.
Well, the first person I contacted was my roommate, and I emailed him and told him who I was and things going. And I said to him, I said, "P.S." I said, "I hope you didn't have any hot pots of coffee joining you in bed lately." And the reason why, because he was a big coffee drinker, and at nighttime we only had percolators then. He got his coffee pot ready, and we go to sleep, and then he set his alarm, and he plugged his coffee pot in, and they set an alarm for an hour. They go back to sleep, and one day he went back to sleep, and his arm caught the cord, and this scalding hot perking coffee joined him in bed. He jumped up, and the houseboy was down there. He ran to help him, and he got everything all cleaned up. When they did, they looked over. I was sound asleep. I never heard anything.
Missed it all.
He said to me, he said, "I could have been killed." I said, "Yeah, you could have been." So I put that in the letter the first time. He said he was the only one in the house. He said he was laughing. He said,
That's
he remembered that.
Right, yeah. So the equipment that you used while you were over there, would that have been modern equipment? Would it have been surplus from, say, Korea or earlier, or?
Some of the crypto gear was earlier, some of it I think it was newer. We have what they call broadcast crypto gear, number 37s, receivers and transmitters. They were kind of newer, but then we had older ones. The radio we used, they were upgrading a lot of the radios to the newer stuff, but we still use what they call the R390s, which was real old World War II stuff. So it was kind of a mixture that we used over there. And of course, everything was tall-type machine. Everything was tall-type machine back during World War II. Too.
Right.
So
for somebody who doesn't know how the crypto or this stuff works, does it come in as a signal, a radio wave? Does it come in as typed out words that you have to decipher? How does that work?
Yeah, it comes in on a radio wave as impulses. Okay. And the crypto gear takes it and encrypts it. You put a little card in your crypto gear, and wherever that is connected to, they have the same card on the other end. So that's how it deciphers between the two. And then it decrypts it, and then it sends it to a tall-type machine to print it out.
So when you see those machines working on their own and they're just typing, that's how it comes across.
Exactly.
So when you would get information, would it have to go through somebody who would censor it, or somebody who would verify it for accuracy?
When we get it in, it would say who it's supposed to go to, and that person would get it.
Okay.
For example, like if a ship needed to be changed of frequency, it will come in, and that's what control also did. And that message will come into the message center, and they would send it over to us, and then we would carry out the orders, what they needed.
Okay. So pretty much anything, like you said, if it needed, if a ship needed to be resupplied, if a ship needed fuel,
right.
if it had to change position,
Yeah.
that all came through you.
Yeah.
To vet out to where it needed to go.
Exactly.
And I guess vice versa, when messages came, they would come through you and you would send them out to
Exactly.
the ship.
Yeah, we were what they call a relay station. We
Right,
relayed it.
like a hub or...
Exactly.
Okay. Equipment pretty much work as it should normally, or?
Yeah. Yeah, we have good ETs over there and stuff like that. And then later on, I went in to repair them myself.
Okay.
After that. After I left Ethiopia, I went to Norfolk, Virginia for 9 weeks to become a tall type repairman.
Okay.
And so I repaired tall type machines. I was supposed to go to the USS Perry, 844, but they decided to decommission the ship because they were having a lot of trouble with the boilers.
Okay.
And so I got transferred then onto shore duty. So I had 4 days on a ship, which went nowhere, and that's my sea duty.
Right.
And so I was the only tall type repairman in Mayport, Florida, on base at that time.
Okay.
So
you were busy.
73, yes. Yeah. So I had a day job Monday through Fridays, but then I was always on call in case something would go down.
Right. So you joined the Navy, but never really get on a ship.
No, this is it.
It's got to be like, what did I join the Navy for?
And my father was in the Army, went to North Africa and back on a ship. So he had more time. He used to harass me all the time. He had more sea time in than I did, and I was in the Navy.
Funny how that works out.
Yes, it is.
So, aside from going into the towns, I guess on your off time and this and that, what else did you guys do over there to keep busy when you weren't working?
Over in Ethiopia?
Ethiopia?
One time we actually went out and rented a Ethiopian boat, and we took some leave and we went out on the Red Sea for a week.
Wow.
And did some snorkeling, fishing. I caught a 35-pound king mackerel out of the Red Sea.
Nice.
One guy caught a 30-pound grouper. We caught barracuda, all kinds of stuff. And snorkeling over there was just beautiful because the water was so clear that when you look down, you could be looking down 30, 40 feet, but it only looked like about 2 feet. I mean, it's just that clear. And
it's
the coral was just gorgeous. So it's just something that's in my mind that I'll never forget.
Right. It's almost like it's not real, like it's a painting or a photograph.
Yeah. So when we had an opportunity, a bunch of us would get together. A lot of us, including myself, had a motorcycle over there, and once in a while we would take a motorcycle trip down the backside, what we call the backside of the mountain, away from the Red Sea, and just go down through the towns and spend a day going down to what the next province we'll call Tigray, and we would go down to the Tigray border and just come back, and have a nice ride.
So day to day, and at that period in time, Ethiopia was not a hostile area? Or was it?
It was in a way because there was a civil war going on.
Okay.
We were in the province of Eritrea, and the Eritreans, the true Eritreans, didn't like Ethiopia because they were a country by themselves. And Ethiopia came in during World War II and took them over. And they kind of battled for themselves. And so every once in a while there'd be a skirmish between the Ethiopian army and the Eritrean army. And we had to be careful of that. Nothing that endangered our lives or, or anything like that we had to worry about.
Just something to be aware of.
Yeah, it was just, exactly. And it was just there. Today, Eritrea has become its own country again. After the fall of communism, because communism took over, then they had an opportunity then to fight the Ethiopians, and they regained their country back. So if you look at a map, there's a country of Eritrea. When I was there, that was part of Ethiopia,
Okay.
and their capital is Asmara, and that's where we live.
Oh, okay.
So, if that makes all sense.
How it changes hands like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So, any incidents that particularly stand out in your mind about when you were over there in Ethiopia? I understand you might have an interesting, funny story.
There's several stories. To be honest with you, in my personal life right now, I'm an ordained deacon in the Catholic Church.
Oh.
And so once a month I get an opportunity to preach, and sometimes I use my stories over there. And I remember one story I used, it was the beginning of Advent, and I was talking about Advent, and my roommate Pete and I were going downtown, and we wanted to get something for the room for Christmas. And so we walked into this one store on the main street called Haile Selassie Street, and it was a toy store. And when Americans walk in, they see dollar signs, you know. And Americano, come on in. And he says, I show you. And he started taking these toys, battery-powered wind-up toys, and getting them off the shelves and putting them on the floor. And they were walking around, and little things were clapping and shooting little things, you know. And he put on this whole show for us, hoping that we would buy something. And while we were watching this, my roommate Pete nudged me, and he said, Jack, he says, look at the window and the door. There were all the bigger kids, all lined up in about 3 deep, and some of the little kids were on the top and the shoulder of the bigger kids, and that was their Christmas. They could never even play with a toy. They'll never have one. But to stand there and watch, they got an enjoyment out of watching these toys.
Wow.
I'll never forget that. And then the owner got upset with them. He chased them away. And just so happens he had a ceramic Christmas tree, so we bought that from him for our room. And we were walking back, and there was the whole group of kids on the corner, laughing and giggling, and you could see they were imitating the toy that they had thought was pretty neat. That was their Christmas, you know. Yeah. They didn't get toys. You know,
they had nothing, and then
exactly.
Just to watch something like that was a treat. Which,
exactly.
You know, I mean, and it kind of puts things in perspective, makes you think how well we have it, and then when you see and you appreciate it more, and then, you know, this is what you're over there protecting.
Yeah, exactly.
Is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and that was the point of my homily that time when I told the people. Yeah, they love to hear stories about Ethiopia because, of course, many of them don't get over places like that. You know. So
that's great. Have you had a chance to go back?
No, I haven't.
Would you like to?
I often thought about it, but since we pulled out, our barracks and all were all taken over by the locals, which was a good thing for them, you know. A couple of people I understood what did go back, you know, and they looked around, you know, but a lot has changed.
I'm sure.
You know.
When the communists came in, I'm sure that landscape and that...
Exactly.
It does, probably, you wouldn't recognize it, I'm sure.
I probably wouldn't.
So, towards the end of your military service, you were back stateside?
I was down in Mayport, Florida as a teletype repairman, and that's what I did down there. And I was the only teletype repairman on base, and so I had a Monday through Friday day job. Somebody wanted me to stand extra duty, but my leading chief said no, he can't, because I was also on call 24 hours a day. And a couple times I got called out, something wasn't working right, and I got called someplace, I had to go fix it in the middle of the night or whatever. And so that's what I did there. And I was telling Terry that I was talking to, she knows about teletype machines too. And I said, one of my big things that used to get me upset, when I walk into the comm center or something, I have all the teletype machines running, and somebody would have a can of Coke or a coffee cup on top. I didn't care what their rank was. I hollered at them. Because if that would tip over and fall down into the machine, teletype machines are thousands of parts and hundreds of adjustments. And it gets down there, it gums everything up. And then I have to stop and rip it apart, take it apart, re-clean it, you know. So that was one of my things. I don't care who you are.
Rank didn't matter. You didn't yell that.
You don't put liquids on top of the teletype machine.
Which I'm still reigns true today for things like that.
Well, I said the only place you're going to find teletype machines now is in a museum with a cardboard picture of me standing next to it.
No doubt, no doubt. So after the you get out of the Navy, what do you transition to in your post-military career?
Well, what happened was, because Navy put me in a teletype repair, it got me into the repair type of thing. I got a couple jobs with ITT and Western Union. Western Union went back to repairing teletype machines. They were still doing that. And then I went to college then, the community college for electronics and stuff like that. I had the mechanical aspect of it, and we had to learn electronics. And I got interested in that, and that's what I did. And so I worked for several companies, and Western Union went down the tubes, and I got a job with NCR as a technician, and I sat with them for 24 years or so, and I worked for 5 different companies. I kept selling salt to another company, and I started repairing things like automatic teller machines and stuff. Which which the Navy gave me the basis of, doing the teletype machines, mechanical, electronics, and stuff like that. So that's what I did most of my life, and so now I'm retired from that.
It's a good feeling, huh?
Yeah. So I tell people, don't work hard because I don't anymore. You make me look bad when you do.
Right. So when you transition back out, when you look back, how does your time in the military, how's that affected your life?
I tell you what, I grew up quite a bit.
Okay.
I was kind of, I would say, kind of immature what I wanted to do, and I didn't know when I went in. And when I came out, I was much more focused on my life. Okay. 3 promises I made myself when I was in the Navy was: 1, don't turn down any travel, don't turn down any school, and don't get myself attached to any girl my first time around. And I kept all 3. So didn't be at the end of my first term, I was thinking about staying in, but the guy that I replaced as teletype repairman down in Mayport, he was married and he had a couple young kids, and I got to know his wife. And one day I went by his house, and his wife was replacing a storm door. And I stopped and I asked her, you okay? So, well, one of the kids got mad and broke the door. I said, well, there's more than just taking it off and putting it on. You got to measure, cut, trim it, Yeah. And so I called a friend of mine, and we hung the door for her.
Nice.
And she was so happy that I came by. Matter of fact, she gave us said, stay for supper. I said, okay. With 2 guys that live in the barracks. Yeah, that sounds good. And I went back to the barracks that night, and I said, do I want to leave my family? He's out 6 months out of sea now. Do I want to leave my family for 6 months? And that's what made my decision not to stay in. And then that following December, I met my wife.
So it's a good thing you got out.
Yeah. And so this July would be 46 years of marriage for us.
Congratulations. That's an accomplishment.
Yeah.
If you were talking to some young folks these days who were thinking about joining the military, what would you say to them? What would you think about that?
Oh, I definitely say yes. I said, especially try to get into a school. The military school, when I went to 2 of them, radioman school and teletype repair, they were top-notch schools. You learn. A quick story about my teletype repair school. When we went there, like I said, teletype machines, thousands of parts. And the first thing we had to do to be behind the printer parts is what they call a main shaft. And we had to pull that off, and there was like clutches on that. And all these parts kind of fall off. Well, what I did was, as they fell off, I placed them on my workbench in line, so all I had to do was reverse it and put it all back on. So during the class, everybody's just dumping them off, and the instructor's going around, and he saw what I was doing, so he stopped the class. He says, look what Jack is doing. He said, all he has to do is reverse this, and he put it all back together. Then he reached in his pocket, grabbed a bunch of screws and nuts, sprinkled over the top, grabbed all my stuff, mixed them together, and he says, now, You put it back together, give me back every screw and nut that I put in there. I went, and
you
everybody
were
laughed.
praised for doing
Yeah,
it.
exactly. But his point was, he says, where are you going? At that point, I thought I was going to go to a ship and a destroyer. He said, you think you're going to have a workbench? He said, you're lucky if you're going to have a coffee cup to put your parts in. He said, you got to know every part and what it does and where it goes.
Life lesson.
Yep. So, I mean, it was a tough school.
Oh,
And then we had to take written test and mechanical test and everything else. And so the schooling is great. If young people go in, you know, try to get as much schooling as you can, and try to travel too. You know.
Let the government pay for you to see the world.
Exactly. When I came back from Ethiopia, it was a few weeks before Christmas. About 3 weeks before Christmas, we came back, and I went, and there was about 6 of us leaving, and I said to the guys, I went to the guy that takes care of all the travel agents, and I said, how much would it cost me to take a couple extra stops? I had to pay for the cheapest plane, which was $35. And I said I was going to Rome, Paris, and London. So I said to these other guys, they said, you know, why don't you come with me? Oh no, it's too close to Christmas. We want to do Christmas shopping. I said, you do Christmas shopping in Rome, Paris, and London, you know. I said, when are you going to get a chance to see it? They didn't do it. I went by myself. So I saw the Pope, I climbed the Eiffel Tower, and I saw Madame Tussauds Wax Museum in London. I did all that stuff. Did it by myself, but I'm not going to turn down this opportunity.
And that's memories you'll have forever, and you're glad you do. So you got to see the Pope in Rome.
Yeah, is that Pope Paul VI? Yeah.
What was that? What was that experience like as a young man?
Yeah, I'll tell you, that was so thrilling. But we had a whole tour of Rome, then we stopped at the Vatican City, and we went into the Sixtine Chapel, and there we sat, and they brought the Swiss guards brought him out on his chair, and spoke in Italian, gave his blessing in Latin. And when he walked away, he came my direction, and I was sitting right up front, so I was very close to him. Yeah, I mean, it was a thrill.
Right. It's one of those things that you, having not had that opportunity of doing what you were doing, you never would have seen the Pope. You never would have been within a foot
exactly.
of him. So you're absolutely right. You've got to do it while you can.
Yeah.
And don't take anything for granted.
Exactly.
And
Take advantage of it. Take advantage of it. Yeah.
Absolutely. What was, say, future generations of yours, say your great grandchildren are going to see this interview one day. What would you like them to know? What's one thing you'd like them to know about your time in your military service?
Oh, boy, if they were sitting here right now and I would look at them, and I would tell them, I said, you know, first of all, be proud of what made American. Keep patriotism going, you know, and sometimes we're losing that today, and it's a real shame. Things like this World War II weekend is one of the best things we could do. And always stand up for your veterans, you know. And if you're being called to serve and serve with honor.
Well said. Couldn't agree more.
All right, thank you.
Is there anything that we haven't spoken about that you'd like to talk about and add about your time?
You know, it's tough on parents during a war. And I remember I caught my mother crying before I went in one time. She was afraid something was going to happen. But fortunately, I came home, you know. But some of my friends and stuff that I grew up with went to Nam, and they didn't come back, you know. And that was hard, you know, when I see that. I had to laugh, though, when I, out of radioman school, when I received my orders for Ethiopia, my mother was telling me she was praying that I would be stationed on the East Coast so that so I could come home once in a while. So I got my orders, and I said, well, I said, I got good news and bad news. I said, what's that? I said, good news is I got the East Coast. My mother thought, oh, that's great. I said, the bad news is it's the East Coast of Africa. Well, my dad laughed because he was in North Africa. He thought that was pretty funny. My poor mother, oh no.
She didn't think that was so funny, did she?
No.
That's fantastic. Well, Mr. O'Connell, I really appreciate you sitting down and speaking with me today.
Oh, this was
It's been
great, Ed.
definitely my honor and my privilege.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for your service.
My honor and pleasure to serve.